Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am Dr. Eric Shiraev. Today we will continue talking about psychology, and today's topic is sleep. So for 30 minutes, I'll try to explain to you what sleep is, how we understand it, how scientists and psychologists understand this phenomenon, and how can we improve our well-being by having better sleep. So it's about you, it's about your life, it's about science, it's about how we apply science to our real life, and also about how we improve our life using the knowledge that we have. As always, I'll be sharing screen with you. It's a PowerPoint slides, and we'll discuss them right away, discuss this topic right away. So, well, it's easy to say that, well, sleep is, process of our lives. It takes about 1/3 of our lives, 30%, about 1/3 of your life will be spent, sleeping. Yes, we essentially waste 1/3 of our life. What would be great is if we just not losing this time, but just be more conscious all the time. Yes, sleep is a form of consciousness. It's a state of consciousness, rather. It's altered state of consciousness. It's different from you being awake. Sleep is a process which we think is been predetermined biologically, and so most animals have sleep periods of their lives, or sleep chunk of their lives. It's most likely associated with a day and night circles, and with the sun and the moon activities. We also know that sleep is a normal process, but can also be abnormal. We discussed today briefly sleep disorders, and what they are and what happens when people develop sleep disorders. So it's a naturally recurring altered state of consciousness, different from attention, a state in which you and I, most hopefully, we spend 16 hours a day being attentive to environment. But sleep also characterized by relatively inhibited sensory activity. We study sensation perception. During sleep, we don't see, don't hear, don't detect signals, most of us, most of the time. Inhibition of nearly all voluntary muscles, we're relaxed most of the time, and reduced interactions with surroundings. Sort of a, old-fashioned, but correct definition of sleep. We will discuss biological aspects of sleep. It's important, briefly. Circadian rhythms, I would pronounce this term. It's a very important phenomenon in nature, and also it's also human beings also can be described in terms of circadian rhythms. We also have, you and I have individual biological features which affect our sleep, such as our biological predisposition to be anxious or not anxious, to be calm, not calm, to be sad or happy, to be a morning person, evening person. Great phenomenon. We'll discuss it shortly. Life circumstances do affect our sleep patterns, the way we sleep, the quality of our sleep, the quantity of quantitative aspect of sleep is how many hours you sleep. Well, let's begin from this point. So circadian rhythm is something which is endogenous, that belongs to us, having inner cause of origin. So the mechanisms are in us. There's a complicated mechanisms that are in DNA, and there's lots of sections in the brain which are responsible for this process. And also it's about oscillation. It's going about 24 hours. So those rhythms are built in, sustained. However, they're adjusted to local environment. So think about it. You were born and raised in Korea. You spend 18 years of your life in Korea, South Korea. And then you have to leave to study in the United States. And the difference will be, 12 hours, right? 11 hours. And so, 2 or 3 days, and you adjust. You begin to follow the pattern of sleep and wakefulness in the United States or any other part of the world. There were studies conducted, so volunteers, of course, people were asked to spend as many days as they well, wanted in a bunker. There's no light, there's no phones available, there's no TV, only things pre-recorded for them. So people were not aware of timing there. And there was food in comfortable conditions within volunteers. And well, you can imagine that without even being aware of the time, they didn't have watches once again. People would establish approximately the same rhythm that they had during their normal life, rhythm of being awake and being asleep. So it's about 16 hours being awake, 8 hours being asleep, with certain differences. There are some deviations in those studies, but essentially, the people have this pattern. So its oscillation is, well, biologically predetermined. And this oscillation is associated not only just with being sleepy or being awake. There's lots of changes take place on the level of neurophysiology, so the hormones and so body temperature decreases, and so lots of things taking place right now. Lots of also pictures on the web about the cycle, life, a cycle of day, and periods in which we are most productive, for instance, and what is most appropriate for us, what is not. And this is again based on your daily activities. So those pictures are quite well known. Sleep itself, the process of sleep. Think about it. You go to bed, let's assume you go to bed at 11 p.m. and then you wake up at say 7 a.m. And so most doctors will recommend you to have this period, 8 hours of sleep. And it's not just a process of sleeping and it's flat. You awake, then you sleep, and then you wake up. That's it. No, it's lots of periods. Within it's maybe 4 those ups and downs, just based on complex neurophysiological mechanisms in the brain. And well, we go to deep sleep, then we go through shallow period, REM, rapid eye movements, and the period of our dreams, and they go back and forth. Well, usually it's for those periods. We will not spend too much attention to neuroscience at this moment, but I will pay attention to the phenomena of morningness, eveningness. It is true that you and I, we as human beings, we are born with a predisposition to be either morning people or evening people. What does it mean, morning, evening? But let's let me use very simple language. This means that you feel more comfortable, you feel more awake, you feel more productive early in the morning, or you feel more productive and more comfortable psychologically and more efficient, effective in the evening. Very short. It's not a scientific study, it's not a scientific test, but those questions give you some idea about what it is. For example, if you answer those questions for yourself, what time would you get up? If you were entirely free to plan your day? So it would be 6 a.m., 7, 8, 9, 11, or noon. So you just decide when and you wake up. What will be your time? What time would you go to bed if you were entirely free to plan your day? Completely, just you. There's no responsibilities that's outside besides only your plans and your work. Suppose you can choose your own work hours. What will be there? Is you work from morning, noon, 8 hours from noon to evening, or late evening and coming to late night, or finally, during which part of the day do you feel most productive, morning, afternoon, or evening? And if you see that, so basically you give answers which indicate early morning, that means you tend to be, or you think that you're a morning person. Instead, if you prefer to get up at noon, and so you prefer to go to bed late, right? And your day of work hours are in the late evening. So this evening person. What does it mean? It means that's how your brain works, how you're programmed to work, and this is like an inborn feature. Can it be in between? Of course. Like everything in psychology is not just clear cut, yes and no, and it's up and down. No. Most of us are in between somewhere. We are okay in the morning, okay in the evening, or we're equally not okay. in the morning and not okay in the evening, or we both, either just if you find, so you can change your lifestyle and get up early or get up late. It doesn't really matter, but most of us somewhere in between. But there are categories, maybe 25% roughly we are morning individuals, 25% roughly we evening, tend to be evening, and 50% was somewhere in between those two categories. So is it our destiny? That's it. We're destined to be morning people, evening people. So that's it. And we can change. No, not necessarily. Every person's genetics, life circumstances, family habits, work schedule, college classes, travel should affect sleep patterns. Think about this. Medical professionals, regardless of what you're morning person, the evening person, you got to adjust. You work a morning shift, you get to work in the morning. You work late at night as a nurse, yes, you got to do so. People adjust. It takes more time if you're a morning person, and this half a year you work night shifts. It will be, yes, it will be more difficult for you to adjust to that schedule compared to people who are night people, but you will adjust because this is your requirement for life. People who serve, and it's, well, you're not asked, oh, are you a morning person? Okay, we wake you up at 4 o'clock in the morning. No, you're deployed, and just you go and you do things, and you adjust to circumstances. People who work late, if you wait tables, if you work in retail, if you work in entertainment business industries, you play music, you work late. I do have my friends, my colleagues, my friends, who used to work or continue working in musical industry. It's just performance, and they begin their work day. It's 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Working in a club in New York somewhere, and they finish their day at 3 o'clock in the morning. So they go to bed. They have breakfast at 3 p.m. and lunch at 7. So this is their lifestyle, and they got to do this. Flight attendants, for example. So it's it's obviously they don't need to explain a lot because they change their schedule, and so they fly, and then they adjust to the tough requirements of schedule and airlines. And so my point is there that we do cope with the changing environment. We do adjust, and we often find a way just to do what we're supposed to do. What if your life is so difficult? What if your life is so stressful that you don't have enough time to sleep? And it's a common mistaken understanding of many people who believe that, well, I'm young, I'm healthy, and so many things to do. Why don't I sleep 4 hours, for instance? Doctors say 8 hours, minimum 7, but 4 hours I can do so because I got so many things to do, work and schedule and studies and college and everything else, school. And then I'll compensate maybe a year later on. It's not true, because what happens there is if a person, say, for instance, decide I will sleep 4 hours, and then during the day I'll be working. That's this is what tough people do. In fact, during the day, if after sleeping only 4 hours, and next day after sleeping 4 hours, and next day, during the day you will be drowsier, you'll be less productive, you'll be less motivated, you'll be less interested in accomplishing things, you'll be less careful, memory will go down. In other words, maybe you win 3-4 hours by not sleeping, but you lose more because you'll be very, very, very inefficient during the day. So that's why the advice always has been, it's better to sleep more and then compensate during the day by focusing, by sustaining your attention, by working harder, but you had 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of sleep. So that's a recommendation to most of us. And I, as a professor in the past, I thought that, the science maybe is not for me, because I better cut my sleep to 5 hours. I had children to raise, I had responsibilities, book to write, classes, and committee assignments, and interviews, and so many things. And let me cut my sleep to 5 hours, and we'll be fine. I'll maybe catch up taking naps during the day. Well, I realized quickly this wasn't the way to do. and frequent naps during the day, and attention problems, and lack of motivation. And overall, I wasn't happy with lifestyle. And as soon as I began to sleep at least 7 hours a night, I found my day is way more productive, way more successful, and I was happier. And this is definitely healthier lifestyle. Well, sleep disorders, it's a problem which people develop. And I tell you that there are millions and tens of millions of Americans now who have sleep disorders, and a substantial proportion of them, maybe even most of them, even don't know about this. They don't know about this. They have little idea that they have this problem. Let me explain a few things. Otherwise, you will recognize that you have those symptoms, and if you see that you have symptoms, you can easily seek help. Any family doctor, any physician who is trained as MD can help you right away with sleep problems, with advice, and sometimes they prescribe medication. In the United States and Canada, in many other countries, there are sleep clinics, professionals who are there who would be using medication or will not be using medication. If you don't want to use medication for sleep problems, then those could use psychological therapy with you to address the problems. It depends what problems are. Well, sleep disorders, let me talk about them. First of all, before we discuss psychological disorders, and we'll be doing this in the future, before we discuss them, I should say that don't be afraid to say term disorder. It doesn't mean you're crazy. No, it's a disorder. So things that orderly, that they're supposed to be, they're normal, they're mainstream, they're common. Disorder means that something goes wrong. It's something not really within the order. So it's a disorder. As I told you, millions of Americans, tens of millions, do have sleep problems today. There's sleep disorders. Well, insomnia disorder, which if you look at Latin, meaning it's a lack of sleep, right? Well, persistent difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep or losing as long as desired. And symptoms should last for at least several weeks. When my students tell me, Professor, well, you talk about insomnia, and I think I do have insomnia. I said, why my question? When did you notice? Well, about 5 days ago, I spent this past 5 nights exactly having those symptoms. Do you think I have insomnia? I said, what do you mean? Go and look at symptoms. At least several weeks, and several weeks means several weeks, at least month, even longer. People can lose sleep for various reasons: temporarily, difficult exam in a week, some job interview in 5 days, some things in the family, you worry about your loved ones. Those things are not good, but they're normal. This is a part of our life. And if we lose sleep for 2 or 3 days, that's fine. For a week, that's fine. This is again part of our life. But then pay attention if the symptoms are persistent. And most people, vast majority of people, begin to pay attention, complain about them after a year or half a year of having these symptoms. So it's about trouble falling asleep at night, staying awake for long periods and falling asleep or waking up. And waking up several times during the night, waking up early, unable to go back to sleep. The person, for example, gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning and doesn't fall asleep. Although she has to be up by 8. Not feeling refreshed after sleeping. We all not feeling refreshed after sleeping, most of us. It's a common feeling. I wish we had maybe give me half an hour. I usually say to my mother, but wasn't possible. But feeling fatigued or sleepy during the day, having difficulty focusing on tasks, feeling irritable, so being just edgy and anxious and snappy. Not all of them should present those symptoms, but at least 3/4 of them. If you find that at least 4 or 5 of the symptoms at least belong to you, so you have those symptoms and they last for several weeks, that's insomnia. There are many techniques which allow us to fight insomnia. And psychologists would recommend you, okay, if you can fall asleep, well, just distract yourself, read the book. It's not about something difficult, something funny, or something calm, something interesting. So You can watch TV, although some psychologists say, no, maybe it's not a good idea to watch the screen. But some say, no, if you really just, it distracts you, if you switch your mind from some anxious topics, that's fine. Many people with insomnia say that, so they wake up in the middle of the night and they have the racing thoughts, like a thoughts just to go and go and go in circles about everything, about tomorrow, about today, about what you're going to wear, about what's something going to happen. So endless. You got to break this circle of those racing thoughts by distracting yourself. Psychologists recommend, and I'm talking about just not using pills, because sleeping pills can be prescribed by a physician, medical doctor. Sometimes what psychologists recommend, if you have this problem with insomnia, you begin to think about something tedious and something simple and something more or less pleasant in your life. For example, you build a sand castle. So you're on the beach, calm weather, you take a bucket of sand, your little boy, or girl, you bring it, you build a wall, you build a tower, you build a second tower, it will be 8 towers, but make it 12 towers. You build bigger walls and build some dwellings inside of the castle, and then more and more you build the castle, so to see. Or you water plants. So you have some lilies, you have some tulips, you have some rosemary, and just you water them. Or you simply have a castle, and in medieval time, and you examine the castle. You open a door. It's a lovely atmosphere inside, candles everywhere. You go to dining room, you go to bedroom, library, you go to drawing room, and so you examine all the rooms in the castle. Some of people who use the technique tell me that's, oh yeah, professor, exactly. After 17th room in the castle, I felt tired and fell asleep. Thank you. Can I go next time examine some museum? Yes, you can go examine a museum. How about instead of building a sandcastle, can I simply just do something else on the beach? Yes, invent some activities, must be tedious and lengthy, and then think about the activity. And that's what can be accomplished. But don't think about something real, something anxious, something which require decisions, and no, just something abstract, something which you feel comfortable with. So insomnia. Hypersomnia, a problem with excessive sleepiness. When the person sleeps normal number of hours, normal 7, 8. I must tell you that age is a factor affecting our sleep, and little babies sleep longer than adults, and people who are older tend to sleep longer. So that's a normal age-related extension of our sleep. But hypersomnia is something which is not normal. I repeat, the person sleeps well, but then during the day continues to be sleepy. The causes of hypersomnia are likely to be genetic, neurological, maybe associated with some medical conditions like depression, obesity, and others. Medication can cause it quite often. So when medication causes hypersomnia, it's a disorder, just basically a symptom associated with other condition. But still, it's something which is unpleasant and requires a medical intervention. One student, it's a funny story, but took place some time ago. We discussed hypersomnia, and I didn't have much time. Just I mentioned about hypersomnia, describe symptoms, and we move on to the next subject. And my student came to my office and said, Professor, hypersomnia, but I'm being sleepy during the day. That's exactly what I have, told my students. And when I asked him, it was a young man, you explain why and maybe just how he developed this. He said, well, yeah, I think I have it for a year. And I asked him, okay, are you a full-time student? Yes, I'm a full-time student. How many credits? 18 credits. Yeah, 6 classes. It's a lot. Yes, a lot. But I also will have to work at night. Work at night. Yes, I work night shift. Night shift, yes, I just responsible for dairy section, and I'm loading and unloading stuff. My goodness, you work at night? Yes, work at night. Do you have family? Professor, yes, I have a family. My wife is pregnant with a second child. I said, goodness, you obviously, how many hours a night you sleep? 4, 3? But professor, I'm young. It doesn't really matter. The person simply was tired, fatigued. Person simply was overworking. And it's not hypersomnia, it's a lack of sleep. And I told him this, don't rush, don't just run marathon at the maximum speed. You can still drop one class, you can take it later. Try to get yourself as much sleep as you can, because lack of sleep will affect your family, affect yourself, affect your performance in classes. Don't be a hero, don't be a hero, slow down, young man, and I hope he did. I hope he did. Sleep disorders can be associated with the quality of sleep. Nightmare disorder is very common in children and adults, more in children. I'll tell you that it is okay to have nightmare. Nightmare is unpleasant to you. Usually we're being chased. Usually we find in an unpleasant situation. We are humiliated, or we're threatened with humiliation, or well, like being naked in a public place. It's one of the universal human fears when we experience during nightmare. Those nightmares, well, maybe sound strange, but they're kind of normal. So bizarre, strange situations. Once in 2 weeks, once a week, here or there. That's fine. That's fine. Children have more nightmares, and every mother would worry if a son or daughter had the nightmares frequently. She'll worry, well, is it a real problem or not? Usually not. And we have fewer nightmares after age 11, 12, when we develop conceptual thinking. And so we begin to understand the meaning of reality, fairy tale, myth, fiction, and nonfiction. Nightmare disorder is profound. Those nightmares are nightly. They are disturbing to the point that the person doesn't want to go to bed, to sleep, because she or he is afraid that there will be nightmare in their life. That's devastating. Nightmare disorder may be not caused by any life circumstances, but usually nightmare disorder is associated with some incidents or series of incidents that people, children suffered, or individuals suffered. In assault or violence against a person, accidents, war. It's a known fact that victims of war, violence, refugees living in camps, and those who witnessed war, destruction, bombing, death, injuries, they're prone to have nightmare disorders. Many students told me in the past that, especially students who came to the United States as immigrants, as refugees, that their loved ones, their mothers and fathers, do have this issue, but don't report it because it's commonly assumed by many people in all cultures, but usually people who don't get enough education, didn't get enough education, that nightmares are part of our life. What can you do? So I suffered, now this is my nightmare, and nothing I can do about it. No, wrong. We can do something about nightmares, and there are clinics and there are doctors who will advise and provide treatment with medication or without medication. So the psychologists, individuals who use their verbal skills, use their knowledge, use their passion, use their love to help individuals recover from many problems, but nightmare disorder is one of those. And they'll tell you whether or not the child has a real problem or just a regular stage of development of the child, and you shouldn't worry about it because she will outgrow the problems. And a little bit of rare illness, it's illness, narcolepsy. It's a relatively rare phenomenon, also biologically caused, decreased ability to regulate sleep-awake cycles. In other words, a person suffers from irresistible attacks of sleep, it's a refreshing sleep, and muscle relaxation quite often. Cataplexy occurs daily over at least 3 months. Symptoms begin early in life, and teens, well, uh, 12, 13, 14, 15, late teens, and then continue. I hear remark very frequently, well, professor, but do people drive who have narcolepsy? They don't, because they're aware of the symptom. They're aware. And they're aware they can put themselves in a very unpleasant situation. That's why they have friends near, relatives near them who assist, and they don't drive because they understand it will be dangerous. This is again it's something which is likely to be inborn, and treatments which effectively deal with narcolepsy not really not really found today, but there's some medication can be found to reduce anxiety, which is usually the underlying symptom, or address some other psychological functions. But most psychotherapists will help individuals adjust their life to the condition they have, so make their life less uncomfortable. So it's about soliciting help, it's about getting friends, it's about learning about yourself, not putting yourself in different situations, difficult situations, and so forth. And finally, sleepwalking disorder. It's well, basically waking in the middle of the night and walking and going back to bed. Lots of stories written about this, fairy tales and horror stories about it. Don't worry, it's not about that. People who sleepwalk usually don't open the door and walk outside, go shopping mall. No, usually it's within the house. More common among children. And in fact, some of my colleagues say that, well, most children sleepwalk, age 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's not a disorder, just a pattern of behavior. They go to the bathroom, go back, and don't remember anything. What will happen to them? We'll go to the kitchen, get drink, and go back. It's probably the case, at least, but twice, 3 times lifetime we do this. And we don't remember what happened, but your relatives say, well, you get up, you get water, and went back to sleep. I don't remember that. It's not sleepwalking disorder, just basically sleepwalking. Certain parts of the brain being activated, and person still sleeping, but still navigate self through the maze of rooms or hallways and goes back to sleep. Usually, you do not have to wake up the person, don't have to shame him or her, just gently guard back to sleep, and discuss it with the individual, discuss that with the professionals, psychologists or medical doctors. They will discuss whether or not the problem requires medical attention, psychological attention, and what's supposed to be done to address this. And one of the common associated symptoms is anxiety. It's stress during the day. And if we address those features, often it helps us address problems with sleep, not only sleepwalking disorder, but many other disorders we have. So in my lecture today, I covered only most important points about sleep, a little bit about neuroscience, a little about biology, genes, a little about lifestyle, a little about your individual effort. So those little things together will most likely help you understand yourself better and to take care of your sleep. Quality and quantity of sleep are important factors that determine your success in life, in education, in professional life, in any aspect, any area of your life. So that's why it's a very important thing for you to think about your sleep. Look at numbers, measure. There are plenty of devices, plenty of apps. I'm wearing one, for example, measures numbers of sleep and measures the quality of my sleep. And you can simply just use a pencil and a timer in recording your sleep, and see it and so find yourself a comfortable niche in your life. That was a lecture on sleep, and as usual, every lecture is accompanied by a few questions. You can see whether or not you can answer them correctly, just to practice your memory and also to check your attention. And we will continue with our lectures. And next lecture will be associated with emotions, human emotions. Very important subject, but till then, thank you so much. Thank you, TutorDudes, for helping, as always. And until next time, Eric Shiraev was with you. Thank you.